Hello, happy another week. If I look a bit frazzled, it's because I've just been in the car with my son who's learning to drive. All good fun, and hats off to any other parent teaching their teenager to drive. A few more grey hairs. At the moment, does anybody else kind of wake first thing in the morning with that kind of sluggish dread feeling in their stomach of what are we going to hear about today? What ridiculous story is going to be on the front of our newspapers today? And I've never known it so negative and relentlessly so, like year after year, where you're just surrounded by nonsense and depressing articles. And seeing today council taking down British flags, English flags, because they find it concerning or could cause, disquiet and ill feelings in the community. It made me wonder how we've gone from a country I remember when I was in the 80s, as a kid, 80s, 90s, that was so cohesive, so strong, had its issues, but generally was one nation, one people, all kind of had the same kind of family values, beliefs, norms, kept to the same rules and everything, and generally very patriotic. You know, as a kid, you'd be out on your bike all day. You never heard of these horrible crimes every day. You know, people often left their doors open. Theft wasn't, a big thing. Parents were happy for their kids to roam around across the fields all day. It just seemed like a much happier time. And obviously I was a kid, so I wasn't focused on politics. But you didn't hear of crazy stories every day, and people just, as I said, it had its issues, but not day after day, week after week, year after year. And I thought, how has it changed so much in just like the last 30 years of me being a kid to now being middle-aged? And what does that mean going forward? Can we hopefully go back to happier times, or would it get even worse? And what are the main things I'm feeling have added to that detrimental situation we found ourselves in? And I thought, what would the UK look like today if our population was still 50, 60 million like it was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s? What would it look like without mass immigration? Where we just had immigration like we had, where it was just a scattering, a sprinkling of people who brought new ideas and different concepts, but they kind of were in a small number, so they just blended in happily, and they were just an accent to the majority rather than overwhelming and potentially completely flipping certain areas and communities. Would our public services be in a much better place? Would there be school places for everybody? Would there be a hospital bed for everybody? Unlike my neighbour the other week, who was sent home 3 times from a big North Yorkshire hospital because they had no beds. Would the roads be a lot clearer? Would houses be cheaper? Could you get to see your GP more? Would there be less crime? Would you hear of machete attacks and grooming gangs? Would the country be a lot more cohesive still? I think so. And the other thing is woke. So if we didn't have woke and our kids weren't taught about toxic masculinity and British history bad, white man bad, would our kids be a lot more positive? Would they be happier? Would they be more gung-ho, more patriotic, more wanting to do their bit? And if we didn't have a state that kind of pushed a welfare life as an option, would kids graft more? Would they put more effort into their school education? Would they have better aspirations? You know, again, as my childhood, even in a little local primary school, it was very Christian orientated, very conservative. You had your prayers, you had your milk monitors giving out milk and clearing up. It was a lot stricter. People respected their elders, respected their teachers. You wouldn't dare speak back to them because you'd get a wallop, basically. So yeah, would our kids and our societies be better without woke? Would the best be given the school places, university places? Would the best be given the jobs? So would the standards of our universities and workplaces be higher? Would you have more kids applying to the military? All of these things, I would say yes. Would you have a legal system on the side of its people? Would you have security at your borders? And would people who breached your borders be held to account with a robust security service, military service, government, social, civil service, etc.? I think so. And finally, net zero. If we didn't have net zero, would we have more plentiful energy supply? Would it be cheaper? Would we be more energy efficient, energy secure? Would people have cheaper bills, more money in their pockets? Would our farmers be happier? Would local food be sourced more readily? Again, I think so. So those three things, immigration, woke, net zero, are for me the three main things that have really, really detrimentally affected this once really happy, proud, what was known as an extremely efficient, upstanding, polite, world-leading, world-class manufacturing, education, policing, everything. I think we would still be very much that country, rather than the country that now, to me, feels like a person that has been locked away and demoralised and abused by an abuser who's made them a shadow of their former selves, where they no longer know their name, what they believe, who their friends are, what their positive characteristics are, and just a weak, quivering mess of a person. You know, a country that takes down its own flags, that's that person that's been emotionally and physically abused for a long time. And again, I think those three things are the main prongs of that demoralisation. Yeah. So if we got rid of those three things, could this country recover back to a place that resembled the brilliant country I remember as a kid?